All right.
We're going to stay here the rest of them?
We got a little bit left to go.
Okay.
Just trying to break up our interview a
Let's go
little.
over by, see, I want to film. Give me a few questions in front of Robert.
What kept you motivating in the early years when you went year after year without a win?
Well, I loved racing. I was on the road. I grew up in a trailer court, so I'm still in a trailer park even to this day. I grew up driving trucks with my dad, and later as a job just out of high school. And then I got into racing, and it was just an escape, driving cars and making a living. I wanted to make a living. Here I had the cheer of the crowd. I got to race guys against guys, girls against guys. It was just ongoing and ongoing, but it was a way of life. It was like the biggest football team in the world. That motivated me, the cheer of the crowd. It does to this day. When I win, the cheer of the crowd. And even when they feel bad for me at the ropes because I lost, don't feel bad for me. I'm living the dream at my age, and I'm no spring chicken. I had polio as a kid. They thought I had spinal meningitis. That's why the comic book of me being kind of like Superman, that in the early days, I was walking. When I was born in '49, so I was walking at 1 year old, 1.5, like my new granddaughter Tinley just started walking. She's only a year, and then all of a sudden I quit walking. Well, we're up in a logging camp in Oregon, and my dad took me over to a Catholic church. It's funny, I go to the Catholic church to this day, but I went into the church and he told the nuns my kid quit walking. And my mother was hysterical, and my cousin Richard Beaver. Understand, getting polio back in the 40s and the 50s was like getting a common cold. You got it and your muscles went away and you couldn't walk. My cousin Richard Beaver got it, but he was older, and he got it from the waist down, was crippled his whole life, and in a wheelchair his whole life, or on crutches. But just a great kid, great individual he was, and he helped me a lot. But my dad took me there, and they said he doesn't have spinal meningitis. That's what the other doctors had said in the little towns. They said, this kid's got polio. So my dad and mom went back to LA and took me to the doctors, and that's when the vaccine came out in 49, 50, 51, and I was part of that. I was hospitalized. I was in the lungs that they put you in to help treat your legs. I went through all that, and you've seen shows about it. And a lot of people don't know. I was very lucky. I limp to this day. When I got to college, playing college, the guy said, you run, you're a quarterback, and you keep falling down. Because if I tried to run too fast, I fell down. As I grew up, I lived with that. In high school, I walk with a limp to this day, but I got up, and one day, my college football coach at East LA, junior college, he said, you're never gonna be great, you're never gonna play pro, I know that's your dream, but he said, you ought to find something else to do the running for you. And that's when I became a race car driver, because the car did the running for me, and the car became my best friend. I had a wife, I had children, but the car became my best friend because it let me run. And it gave me back the dreams of being a football player and wearing a helmet. I got everything I had in high school. Okay, enough of that. Well, number one, I've got a trailer in Indy that hauls 5 or 6 cars, an 18-wheeler. So I went to Canada and I did shows where I put out a lot of the cars from my career. I've got all my cars from my early days. You know what I mean? When I had to sell them in the first 20 years to buy the next one. But I went back and I bought them back. Some of them I saved. I've got all the championship cars. I've got over 100 cars in my museum. And I've got, but besides the cars that I actually race, now I've got dragsters. And that's why I keep them. This building should be used to make money instead. It houses the history of my cars. It's got Flav-R-Pac, it's got Monster, it's got Auto Club, it's got Traxxas, it's got the Elvis cars, the Castro cars of the old days, the Coca-Cola cars, the Mountain Dew cars, the Wendy's cars. I mean, this list goes on and on. The original brute force car that I drove in Australia. I've even got a duplicate in Indy because I have cars there too. That's why I need a big museum, and it's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming.
Joe Costello, any dieting advice?
Well, my dad always said to me when I complained about eating too much and I'm gaining weight, and I had all these ideas of diets. My dad said to me, you don't want to gain weight, don't put food in your mouth. That simple. And that's hard because in the stress of a day, the fight, getting up, if you don't eat food, you have no energy. You can't drive a race car with no energy. You have no reaction times. Maybe that's part of my problem. But in the midst of it, you have to have nutrition. We all understand that. But then you have stress, and stress makes you want to eat. You know what I mean? You want to eat candy. You want to do this. Want to eat donuts. It's all part of that. I went on Nutrisystem. I lost 25 pounds. I used to be over 200 pounds. And I got myself right down to 170. I even went to 168. But everybody told me I didn't look good. I looked funny in the face, drawn, like, what's wrong with you? And I put on 5-6 pounds since then. But I want to get that back. Okay? But I lived on Nutrisystem and I lived it. And that happened during the pandemic. I said, you're at home now, you don't have to eat fast food, restaurant change. You got a chance here and live it, and I was able to lose it. But I'm gonna go on it again here in a few weeks. So I've tried Golo, didn't really get into that. It's more psychological. And I've tried just dieting. So you gotta figure out your own way. There is no answer. The truth is, eat right, and limit your portions of what you eat, and that'll help you right there.
Harry Risher, he is an NHRA photographer who has attended the U.S. Nationals for 67 straight years. Have you ever seriously considered getting out of the racer's seat?
Get out of the what?
The racing seat. You joke about it sometimes.
The racing seat.
Yeah.
No, first of all, I want to congratulate you, somebody that's finally close to my age, right? 67 years at Indy. Boy, you've been out there for a while, unless you went there when you were 1 year old. But appreciate what you do. Photography is what puts us out there. It's what makes us exist. Not just to cheer the crowd, that's for a day or 2 or 3. But when you go away from that, the only thing left is the TV, the pictures, the newspapers, and all of that with photographs. Get our sponsors brand awareness out there, and that is what keeps us alive. So thank you. Anyway, God bless you. Thank you for all the photos all the years.
The last one is from Matt Nicholson. He's a NASCAR radio host in Alabama. He says, if there's one race you could run again or have a do-over, what would you run over?
I'm sure there was a championship along the way that one race took me out. Maybe a bunch of them. Like to run that to have a shot again, but the other guy earned his shot. He got it. So, we talked about that I loved winning $250,000 in the Winston shootout, at Bristol when I beat Vandergrift in a top fuel dragster and I was in a funny car. Probably the greatest one, and I didn't enjoy it at the time, was when Ashley, driving a fuel funny car and I was in a funny car, she beat me in Atlanta. She had outrun me, so she had lane choice. She got the good lane. She put me in the junk lane. They're not junk, but it had a bump in it, and I got over the bump and it unloaded. And I got out of the car and I was so mad because I get into fight mode, and Robert said, John, your daughter just won her first race ever. You need to go over there and hug her. And she was over there interviewing, and that was a moment that was really big to me. But if there was anything I'd like to see, I wasn't there with my wife Lori when all of my daughters were born. You know what I mean? I was there when Adra was born with her mom, Lana. Okay. But I'm never a guy to go in a hospital. I just want to sit there and be part of it. I waited, for whatever reason. I did see, I think I saw Ashley born, but I missed Brittany, and I think I missed Courtney. I don't know for sure. I got to check on that. But I'd like to have those moments again, just to be a part of it and share that moment.
Okay.
Thanks.
But he didn't technically answer that question. Well, I took it differently. No, but I took it as if you could do one over to do differently. That's how I took it.
Like
Yeah, but I
when
answered
had
it with
lost.
you.
Yeah.
If I could do you over. Oh,
Oh, you mean you would beat me?
yeah, let me.
I was thinking of when you red lit the final race of the year and the whole off season was the worst Christmas ever. That's the one I would do over.
And to answer that question, probably the worst thing that can happen to you is to be at the last race of the year and red light. And Ashley brought this up to me. You got to live with it all the rest of winter. Christmas, Thanksgiving, and you never forget that moment of that red light. And, you know, that's really part of it. But if there was something that we could live over and you can't, would be our crashes. I'd love to, you know, Eric's crash. Wish you could change it, but you can't change it because God has a plan. And we lost him that day. But that was heartbreaking to his family, his dad, you know, John Medlin, his mom, and all of the family. And we can never do that again because I know I had a bad crash. They took me out of Dallas. I broke my arms and my legs. They told me I was finished. And I remember crying in the helicopter going because my whole life was racing and now it was over. Because I listened to people say, am I gonna be okay? And they're saying, when can I come back and drive next week? I still finished in the top 10. But the point was, the guy in the helicopter said, look, son, I don't want to be negative, but you're gonna be lucky if you walk because you broke your arm, you broke your wrist, you broke your ankle, you broke your leg. You're junk. Let's get you to the hospital. Let's get blood because you're bleeding really bad. Bone was sticking a half a foot out of my knee. It just popped out. And, you know, you're a mess and all you're thinking about is you're gonna come back next week. But that's the way I've always been my whole life. So I wish that could be done over again, but I came out, I'm okay, but I really struggle with I still have pins in my legs and my wrist, and I can't get to an airport without getting stopped in the beepers. But I wish I didn't have that with the polio that I already had and all the stuff. People will watch me coming out of an airplane and they'll see me fall down like, what's wrong with him? That's John Forrest. He can't even walk. Some days when I sit too long and I get up, I struggle really bad. Enough said. God took care of me and I'm fine being here and I have no complaints at all.